How's it going, everybody? Welcome to the Thursday episode of The Big Thing, but today is going to be Sith Council. Big Thing Sith Council today. And there's a lot of different things. Who's going to play Thrawn, more on Bad Batch, and the Star Wars movies, Mandalorian coming up around the corner. We had a Katie Sackhoff interview coming up here. Lots. And all of that, most of it, is going to be generated from fan questions. Today's going to be a lot of Q&A stuff, and it's just going to be me by my lonesome here answering all the wonderful questions that you guys sent in, whether it was the YouTube community page or on my Facebook page. So if you've submitted a question, I hope that, again, I can't get to everybody's question, but I picked a whole bunch of good ones. I left a lot of good ones off the table, unfortunately, because there were so many. So I thank you guys for all that. So we're going to get started in just a little minute. If you didn't know that, by the way, that we're on video now on Spotify, that's another thing. We've been uploading all of our shows to Spotify now, and we're on audio for Apple Podcasts. So if you like to listen to us on the drive, there you go, Apple Podcasts, and audio on Spotify as well, wherever podcasts are found. So that helps tremendously. You got the Patreon, patreon.com/The Big Thing Show. A lot of great things, the one-on-ones over there. I put up a one-on-one with Kristian Harloff that I did with one of our patrons. It's a special tier that we offer, and it's up on the Kristian Harloff and Friends channel if you want to check that out. If you haven't done this already, you should subscribe. Look at me, and we're getting close. Look at this. Boom. We're getting close to 65, and we hope that you guys can get us closer to 70 by hitting that button. You want to get a Sith Council shirt, you can do it. Head on over there, show a little class, will you? And get yourself one of those shirts. This is well, you know what? Let's start the show. We're going to start the show, and then I got another big announcement to start it. But this is the Big Thing. This is Sith Council. Let's do it, everybody. You ready? I'm ready. Let's do it.
I can feel your anger. It gives you focus, makes you stronger.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to Sith Council. I'm me, Kristian Harloff. Nice to join you today. Steph and Mike not here this week. Mike was on my Big Thing episode, the special one we did on Tuesday with all the DC stuff. It's pretty great. You had an opportunity, you want to go check out that episode with myself and Mike. Steph has the week off. She'll be back next week. So I decided this week we're going to do a whole bunch of questions from you guys, and as we get ready for the big kind of Star Wars boom that's coming with The Mandalorian, and yesterday I posted a clip of Katie Sackhoff reacting to the Mandalorian poster that was released, and people were like, well, where's that interview? Now, we shot the whole thing yesterday. It was myself, Katie, and Brett. It's a really good episode. It's great. I can't wait for you guys to see it, but Katie and I were talking, and we're like, what we're going to do is we're going to wait to release it until that Monday before The Mandalorian comes out. More people will be searching for Mandalorian. More people will be looking for stuff from the cast, and it just makes more sense instead of it getting buried now. So look forward to that one because it's really, really good. She came in, we talked, and then she's going to come back after the show is done, and we're going to do a full spoiler discussion with her. That's already on the books. In the works, all that. All right, before we get started on your questions, because there are a lot of really, really good ones, I got to tell you guys about two things. One, look at this. An evening with Campia, Harloff, and Alba just announced. That's going to be on February 19th, Sunday, at the Flappers Comedy Club. And it's the three of us. It's going to start out with some comedy, and it'll most likely be Kate Mulligan hosting, have somebody kind of come up in between, and then I'm going to close out, do like 15, 20 minutes leading into a big show with the three of us where we'll be talking about Ant-Man Quantumania and like a spoiler discussion. So obviously go see that movie and then come sit down with us, have a couple drinks, have some laughs, and it's going to be great. And I think that what we're trying to do here, well, let me tell you in a second what we're trying to do. And then let me also tell you about this one. This is also at Flappers, but the week earlier, February 13th, at 8 p.m., myself and Brett Sheridan will be on the Jake Lewis Show. There's a link in the description for discounted tickets for you guys if you want to get them. And that's pure stand-up. That's going to be on the 13th. So you can come check us out on both of those if you like. But again, that's the 13th and then the 19th with myself, Greg, and John. It's going to be a lot of fun. Now, as far as that Greg and John show goes, we were talking about it. Now, if we can get if you guys all come and support it, and obviously if you're able to, if you're in the California area, the goal is to look at that show and say, hey, this worked out pretty well. We enjoyed what we were doing, and maybe we'll do another one in LA. And if then that goes well, maybe we'll take it on the road. So come if you're able to, come check it out, come see what you think. And then we'll take it from there. It's going to be exciting. John's going to be talking about it on his show, and Greg's obviously going to be talking about it on his show. So pumped to get this going. All right. So let's get to it, ladies and gentlemen. Let's start. I'm ready. You ready? Okay, cool. Let's get to some questions. The first being from Mark Sith. I like that. Does Ewan McGregor know more about Kenobi 2 than he is letting on? He has a history of doing this. Well, it's tricky when it comes to a history of doing this, because when he was asked, about the movie in the first place, it was still talks, and he really hadn't signed on anything. And then he signed on to a movie, but then the movie was canceled because they panicked about Solo, which was stupid. Two very different things. And instead of, well, look at the data, they don't want legacy characters. That's the stupidest thing ever. Now, I'm still happy that it was a TV show. People are saying, like, don't you wish, now after seeing what happened, don't you wish it was a movie rather than a TV show? No, I just wish it was better writing on the TV show. And there's a lot of stuff on the TV show, by the way, that I did like. I just think that had the writing been better and they had put a little, so it's still very weird to me that and you guys know how much I love Andor. It's bizarre that they put more money into Andor than they put into Obi-Wan. That makes no sense to me. It makes no sense, and it showed. And I get it. They were also dealing with pandemic and COVID, and the COVID pandemic and all that stuff that they have to kind of maneuver through. And it wasn't easy, but there was a lot of stuff I think could have been avoided. Nonetheless, as far as number 2 goes, look, for people who are going, oh, we don't need a number 2. It depends on what the second one is, because I've said that as well. It depends on what the second one is. Now, because make no mistakes about it, that show did very well for them streaming-wise. I mean, how my point about how the difference of putting out something of like an unknown Han Solo movie, who is that, as opposed to, oh, Ewan McGregor's coming back as Obi-Wan, and it's Obi-Wan. And that's why it did so well TV-wise. Even if you didn't like it, you still watched it. And you watched it because you wanted to see where it was going to go and all that. Now, the question is, with season 2, would they actually, sometimes creators and production companies listen, or I shouldn't say listen, pay attention to what worked and what didn't. And sometimes they like to stick their feet in the mud and say, nope, we really believe in this particular thing, even if it didn't work, and we're going to continue down that particular road and follow that tone. If they do a second season, I hope they do some alterations to it. I hope they change it up. Do I think? I mean, I do think business-wise, it would make sense for them to do a season 2. Am I excited about a season 2? Not necessarily, but I could also change my tune very fast after going, well, look, they made some changes, and this show is fantastic. Look what they did. They jumped back into they de-aged him for certain scenes, and they did some Clone Wars missions with him and Anakin, and they did some other things they showed the actual backstory of how he was taken. It's like an origin story of Obi-Wan, of how he became a Jedi. Show him kind of training. There was some de-aging stuff with him and Liam Neeson of an adventure for the week with Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan, but it was taken a little bit more serious, and it looked like more high production. I'm going to change my tune pretty fast because it's still Obi-Wan, and they can change some things, and I think you keep Vader out of it. I think that's where they would automatically panic and going, oh my God, we got to put Vader in it. We got to put Vader in it, otherwise no one's going to watch it. And you guys, again, most of you might know, I was a big advocate that Vader should have been in the first season. I still think that it should have been the main focus of the first season. But either way, so no, I don't know if he's necessarily I'm sure he knows more than obviously we do. He's been taking meetings, having conversations about whether it's going to happen, how it's going to happen. They probably want to put the right. If I'm Ewan McGregor, I'm going, look, every time I put a freaking Star Wars thing out, the same thing happens. It's like because nobody's going to say his performance wasn't good. He was fantastic. He's great as Obi-Wan. It wasn't as divisive as when the prequels first came out. I think there's definitely more people who like the show than don't like the show. I know there's a lot of criticisms for the show for sure, but I don't think it can be argued that, if you were going to do a poll and say, all right, there's 3 Star Wars shows come out in 2022, and they're Andor, Obi-Wan, and Boba Fett. Before any of them came out, I guarantee you that I would have put a poll in that community tab and said, out of these shows, 2 questions, right? Question 1, what are you looking forward to the most? It would be Obi-Wan, it would be Boba Fett, it would be Andor. Those would be the 3 that results. I would bet a lot of money on that for sure. The second question is, what shows do you think will be the best out of the 3 of these? Again, it would be Obi-Wan, it would be Boba Fett, it would be Andor. Now, if you asked after they have aired, what are the best out of this? And I have asked that question, and this was the result. Andor, Obi-Wan, Boba Fett, right? And in no world should that be the answer. It just shouldn't. It should be, hopefully they change it. Okay, let's see. So that's, thank you for that question, Mark. Let's get to the next one here. And that would be from Daniel Breen. Daniel Breen. Thoughts on the delay of the Jedi Survivor game? I personally would rather game developers give more time for people to polish games before release so there's less crunch time. Yeah, so there was a delay in the Jedi Survivor game, and it's only about, I think, a couple weeks. I don't know if it's necessarily about they said that, I think inside of that report, they said that they want to fix a couple things that people had issues with, and one of the things, I think it was aimed towards me, about falling off cliffs and all that. I'm excited about that, about how to respawn and do that, and I'm sure that's true. But I also think it might have something to do with the fact that it's coming out, I think, after or right before the end of Mandalorian. I think that they're spacing things out to kind of link up. It also comes out right around the same time as Celebration, so they can play into Celebration with the release. So I think that there's probably a little bit more to it than just fixing the game, which I don't think that they're lying. I just think that there's more to it than just that. And I think that that's fine. If it was I'd be more concerned if it was 6 months, 7 months, 8 months, a couple of weeks. Who cares? I think complaining about that is silly. If it's a couple of weeks, you're like, what? I get it. EA, and they've had a few mishaps, more than a few mishaps, but it's like, if it comes out to be because of strategy of when they're releasing it, from Mandalorian and then also Celebration and a few other things here, and there's other variables that are going with it, a couple of weeks, who cares? It's not a big deal. Okay. Next question. This one is coming from Brian Shirtcliffe. Was that just from Brian also? No, last one was from Daniel. This one's from Brian Shirtcliffe. How do you not geek out when you interview awesome celebrities? Who's to say I don't? But I think that there's certain ways that you can do it, right? I think sometimes I start it with the fact that, I'm geeking out, right? Because I think that's true it's also true. It shows you that it's genuine, right? Because if I'm sitting there talking about Andor for the whole freaking time that I got an interview with Diego Luna, I'm geeking out. I'm excited talking about, I bring that, but I don't let it interfere with the conversation, because it's like that same thing you say, like people are people. And the one thing that I always bring up, and I know that he's kind of gotten himself into trouble in the last couple of months, but CM Punk, I've always had good conversations with Phil every time I've talked to him. And I think the reason he likes talking to me is because when he came in and I asked him this thing about, and I've talked to you guys about this, when he came in and I asked him about if he hadn't announced yet that he was on, he was doing something for WWE on the, that after show. And I asked him if he went in, and he's like, he paused and he goes, yeah, I went in for it. And it was like this breaking thing. It got like 1 million views or whatever it did on Collider. And he said, you know why I told you that? And I said, why? He said, because you talk to me like a person. And I was like, okay, it's just conversation. And I said, that's the goal, right? It's that you can still be a fan of people. You can still be, like when you watch that interview I did with Andrea Riseborough, I was like, that movie choked me up, and it brought out a lot of kind of memories for me. So like when I don't let my emotions hide from it, but I also try to like have pure conversations the same way I would if I knew them well, the same way I would talk to. There's more familiarity sometimes. Like you'll see it in the Katie interview. Like we goof around with her for a long time. She has a great great rant on parenthood. It's hilarious. I mean, it's hilarious, but I think that's because she's comfortable with us, right? But yeah, that's it's just different because of the relationship also. But I think that's what I like to do. And when I interviewed Harrison Ford, same thing. I walked in and I was like, oh my God, it's Harrison Ford. But you got to just go, I'm just going to talk to this man like with respect, but as a human being. And I think that's the goal. That's the goal. Okay, next one. Thank you for that question. Michael Flashpolar. Is this the darkest period of Disney Star Wars? I feel like after Acolyte and Skeleton Crew, there are no plans and there's going to be a dry year before Star Wars can reorganize. Oh, no, I don't agree with that at all. I don't agree with that at all. If you're talking movies, I mean, look, we're in 2023 here. So Acolyte and Skeleton, so Acolyte's not this year. Remember, Acolyte's 2024. So and so's the Andor season 2. At least that's what I think they're going to announce at Star Wars Celebration. This is not a dry period at all, or a darker period. You've got this year. I think someone brings this up a little later. There's consistent Star Wars programming on from now until the end of the year. I think there's only like a couple of weeks in between where you're not going to have Star Wars programming. You've got Bad Batch on right now. You're going to have The Mandalorian. Visions, I think, is coming out this year, I think. But you got Ahsoka, you got Skeleton Crew. So this year is pumped full of it, right? And then next year, you're going to get The Acolyte. You're going to get Andor Season 2, and maybe something else that we'll get an announcement for at Celebration with some other, maybe a new Tales from the Jedi. Maybe, who knows? Something is going to come out in 2024. 2025 is supposed to be the release of the new movie, and we'll probably get an announcement for that at Celebration. So this is, I disagree entirely. I think this is the start of kind of like the new, if they do it right, golden era with a plan. Yeah, I actually think the complete opposite. I think that right now, after the shows I was just talking about, where Boba Fett and Obi-Wan didn't deliver in the way that you kind of hoped that they would, the goal, and fingers crossed, is that Mandalorian Season 3 is really going to deliver. And then that links in to also Ahsoka, which is essentially the next season of Rebels. And then you got Skeleton Crew, which also leads into this whole kind of cross event thing that they're talking about anyway. So that alone is a big period for, 2023 should be huge for Star Wars. And then if Acolyte delivers, that's 4 shows, potentially boom, 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 boom. And then who knows? And then if Andor Season 2, they're pushing heavy. And then you'll get some news about this film. If they don't, then you're going to seriously drop the ball. They have to tell you something about movies soon, and it's probably going to be at Star Wars Celebration. That's the big. That's what they should do, I think. All right, Louis R., do you believe that TV shows have overtaken movies in importance when it comes to Star Wars? More TV shows are being announced while the movies are still in the dark with no direction. Now, this I agree with. Because of a lot of different variables, a lot of different things, right? So the first part of it is the TV shows, for the most part, and I know that I've been saying this like forever, and a lot of people do, but the TV shows have a plan. Even the TV shows that have one season and it doesn't necessarily connect, something like Andor, it's got a full season and a plan from start to finish. And the same thing with Obi-Wan, same thing with Boba Fett. They have a plan. And the movies right now are, as far as we know, they're still scattered and there was no particular plan. I think that now they're starting to formulate a plan, and then they're going to try to put into play the same way that the TV shows are. But that's the reason why you feel like that and why it's accurate is because it's also what I just say in the last question. We have consistent Star Wars stuff coming out that are telling stories, and you even have this whole plan with the Filoni Favreau universe that's connecting, and you're more invested into it because you have stuff to be invested to, and all you hear is, well, Lindelof might be doing a movie. He is doing a movie, but we don't know what it is yet. Daisy Ridley might be in it. She might not be in it. It could take place after this. We don't really know yet, and that's on purpose. They don't want to tell anybody until they have. I think it's smart to wait and say, okay, now we're actually filming soon. and this is our cast. If they do that, and that makes it real, as opposed to, well, we want to do this movie. This is Patty Jenkins, and she's doing this movie. And this movie's coming out, and it's going to come out, at the end of 2023. But we don't have anybody cast yet. We don't have anything. We don't even know when it's filming yet. But here she is with her helmet on in an X-wing. So that means it's going to happen. That doesn't mean jack, obviously. But if they say, hey, we this is our cast, this is our movie, this is when it's taking place, the script's done, we're shooting, we started shooting, and this is what's going to happen, this is our plan, that's the way to go. And then it starts to be like, okay, well, now the TV obviously knows what it's doing, and now the films seem to know what it's doing. I think they got to learn from their past mistakes of going, if they're going to do a trilogy, and I don't think that they are, but if they were going to do a trilogy, and they announce, okay, we have a trilogy of movies coming out in this era, and our first movie is going to be with Damon Lindelof, and he's producing it, or he's producing the whole trilogy, and our first director is, and I forget, it's first, I believe it's director of Loki. But I forget where she's from. But anyway, they announce her, and then they go, but she's not directing the second one. Second one, we don't know just yet, but we know that it's going to take place in this era. And then the third, we have a new director, and that director is going to do this. And you're like, oh, no, this is the new trilogy all over again. They should have, if they're going to do a trilogy, a clear-cut plan from start to finish of what it is, treatment, all that. It's got to lead to here, 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 and here. You get different directors, fine. They did that in the original trilogy. You've done that in other movies. You can do that. And do it with TV, and it works. But they follow a plan. So, yeah, that's what I think. It's going to take a lot of energy to do all this. And speaking of energy, Athletic Greens. You guys know how much I love Athletic Greens. I take AG1 by Athletic Greens every day. You guys know it. I've been talking about it forever. And there's a reason why they're on the shelf. I mean, they're on the shelf, for goodness sake. And why did I start taking it? I wanted better gut health. I wanted increased energy, immune system support. I hated taking pills, vitamins, and I wanted a supplement that actually tastes great. And that's what I do. You guys know it. I have that. I'm not going to lie to you. I saw it when I first started taking it. I was like, it's green. It's yummy. Tastes good. You get intimidated at first, but then after you take that sip, you're like, oh man, they actually made it taste good. And I take AG1 in the morning. I put it in a water bottle and I shake it up, and I love it. And I do it right before. Now I can do it right before the coffee. It's great. It makes me feel unstoppable. I'm ready to go. I'm ready to do it. It's good for sleep quality too, by the way. It really helps with sleep quality. I noticed that right away. And I don't like combining all vitamins, and I've never been really a big vitamin guy. Taking all the supplements and bunch of different things. This makes it easy for you. You just take it in one scoop. Done. It's 75 vitamins, minerals, whole food source superfoods. It's so good. It's so good, and it's so great. And you guys know for how long I've been talking about it, and I've gotten so many responses from you guys of people who've been trying AG1 and been loving it. And you get it delivered every month. Very easy to make it a daily habit. So, if you are looking for an easier way to take supplements, Athletic Greens is giving you a free 1-year supply of vitamin D and 5 free travel packs with your first purchase. You go to athleticgreens.com/bigthing. That is athleticgreens.com/bigthing. Check it out today. All right, thank you again to our friends over at Athletic Greens. Love Athletic Greens. Big fan. As you guys know, I'm moving with them for a long time now, and you help out the show. People ask that all the time. How do we help out the show? How do we help out the show? How can we help out the show? Well, there's certain ways you can do it. You can leave a comment. You can click a like. All of it. You can get a shirt. You can join Patreon. Whatever you want to do. But I also say, you want to support the show, get yourself something that's going to help you. And Athletic Greens is absolutely one of those things. People said to me the other day, hey, you lost weight. I was like, yeah, I've been eating healthier. I've been doing that. I've been taking vitamins, and I'm not a big vitamin person. So there you go, athleticgreens.com/bigthing. All right, let's move on. Let's keep going with the questions. Questions. You got a question? I got a question. Okay, what is it? Clinton Tingler. What tone do you think the first new film will take? The tone of Andor or the tone of The Mandalorian? I think there could be a blend inside of that. Because the tone of Andor... Now, there's a difference between tone of Andor and subject matter of Andor, right? Because I can see, and I also get the criticism when people go, I like my Star Wars with more of a sprinkle of space opera and this. And Andor doesn't really have that. Andor is a political thriller set in the Star Wars world, and it covers one pocket. I like that. I also love The Mandalorian because Mandalorian covers all of it. I don't think you can do the pocket for your first film out the gate. I think you got to do space opera Star Wars, because the difference, and this is what I say all the time, this is why I always push back against people who go, well, Andor didn't do very well. Andor is doing very well now, because there's a ton of people who heard about it. They're already subscribed to Disney Plus. They didn't give a crap about it when it came out. Then they heard how good it was, and then they go back and watch it. It's the same reason any movie does good on HBO or Showtime or whatever, too, because people heard about it in the theater, they didn't get a chance to see it, and then they see it. And the difference is, if you're subscribed to this service, why wouldn't you watch it? It's been happening all the time, and it's why Andor continues to go up in the streaming thing. But it's completely different with movies. If you made something like Andor in a movie, and people weren't excited about it, doesn't matter the difference with movies is, once it's out of the theater and it doesn't hit that opening weekend, dead duck. So you've got to market to your big strength, and that's the problem with the movie in general, right? So you've got to say, all right, we got to go space opera, we got to do this. Now, it should, I hope, have a balance of really good writing and not just spectacle, because that's the problem. You don't want to just make Star Wars popcorn stuff, because that's why Star Wars is special. It shouldn't just be a popcorn movie. It shouldn't. And that's why, still, Empire Strikes Back is still my favorite movie of all time, because it's more than just a popcorn movie. It's got a lot of layers to it. It's got a lot of great character development to it. It's got a lot of spirituality to it. It's got tons of stuff in it. And I hope that they can do that with the new movie. And if they do, they can set up, because what the new movie can do is it also sets up, if you set it up, if the first movie is just awesome and sets up new characters and sets up new lore in a new period of Star Wars, it's like it becomes rich. And it also allows you to say, okay, look, who's really popular was that side character. They love that particular character, but we don't know what to do with them. What about a side story about them on Disney Plus, like a television show? Like, yeah, that's not a bad idea. And what if it follows their adventures of this, and then that can tie into maybe something that happens in the second film? And that's the beauty of it, because right now we're kind of locked into the original trilogy is really where we're playing for the most part, minus like the Acolyte. You look at every series, the first series, the Mandalorian, right after Jedi, and the events of what happened in Jedi. Obi-Wan Obi-Wan's kind of prequels into New Hope. So it's like right before a little bit kind of leading into New Hope, whatever. It's like, 15 years or something before, or I don't know, 10 years. I can't remember. Either way. It's like that. So same thing, playing into that area that we know, the prequels in the original trilogy. Boba Fett, same thing, right after Jedi. Mandalorian, all this stuff. There's nothing. The only one is Acolyte, which explores about 100 years before, whatever it might be. So to explore way past Jedi and past the sequel trilogy, I think it's a good thing to do, because you play in this whole new area. Okay, let's keep going. Next question. That would be sorry. Wait, did I do that already? I'm sorry. Oh, what an idiot I am. I apologize. It's okay. All right. So this is from Francisco Matalanya. Hey, Kristian, is 2025 too soon for a new Star Wars movie? I think 2030 would be a smarter date to let the anticipation build up. 2030? I don't know, man. You gotta think about this if you're Disney. I mean, they were probably, Chapek, when he was in there, was probably sweating every day. What is happening? Why don't we have any Star Wars movies? You buy Star Wars, remember, at one point they were talking about doing Star Wars movies once a year. And people are always talking about how crazy that was. And look at they're doing TV shows. It's not. It's so easy to say it when it's like Monday, or it's, I don't know, with a Monday morning quarterback, whatever. Because the difference is this. Now, Marvel does it, and people, Marvel is established. Yeah, that's right. You got to get yourself more established. And I don't mean, Star Wars obviously an established brand, but established as far as confidence from the fan base. If they would have made, if all of those movies would have been like fantastic, like so great, and just an amazing set of films, then and it continued on a universe and started popping off side characters and the same type of thing, People wouldn't have cared if it was twice. I mean, again, people still, there's always going to be that conversation. Like there's conversation I brought up the other day. Like, is there superhero fatigue? Right? Those movies still, people are, yeah, I'm tired of superhero movies. I'm tired of it. You might be, but general public says nope, because they're still pumping out. Well, Black Panther didn't do as well as normally did. It made $800 million. It didn't cost $1 billion. It made $800 billion. That's a lot of money. So did Doctor Strange, which that movie I didn't really care for, and Thor did well too, which I don't like at all. So people are still, and I do think there's a lot of Marvel stuff to keep up with now too. I'm bringing my daughter to see Ant-Man, and like we had to it was like homework to like get her to watch all the stuff leading up so she's not lost going into it, but it's still working. So my point of all that is that Star Wars can, if done right, come out once a year, but not now and not for a while. Not for a while. Right now it should be get the first movie right, because that's why the smart move was saying, no, stop saying Taika Waititi's movie is coming out at the end of 2022 or 2023. Stop saying that, because that's not going to happen. I think it was 20. Was it 20? I think she said 2022, 2023. I can't remember when she said it. It's probably 2023. Stop saying that. That's the first thing, and they stopped saying that. That guy's stretched too thin. He has too many things happening, and it's not the right tone to go into what you're about to do. You got to change it up, and you got to set the moment. So I think 2025 is perfect, because Disney needs to make money. Disney needs to make, what are you talking about? They need to make money. They're making money all the time. They need to make more, because they have a lot of expenses. Disney Plus and a lot of these streaming services are not profitable, and they need to make some cash. So I think that with Star Wars coming back in 2025, it's a good move. Anything before that, it would be a pretty big mistake. All right, let's see. Keep going here. Next question. Daniel, do you think The Bad Batch could be canceled once this season has concluded? Absolutely nobody seems to be talking about this show, and I personally know nobody who watches it. I myself watched the first 4 episodes and I bailed on it. Despite really enjoying episode 3, it just hasn't grabbed me, and I feel many people are in a similar boat. What are your thoughts? Canceled is a good question, because I don't know how it ends yet. I think I've only had an opportunity to watch, I think 14 episodes, and I think there's 16. They only sent 14 of them, unless I looked at it wrong and didn't realize that they sent the other 2. And there are some, like this episode with the Wookiee, the Jedi, I thought it was a good episode. There's episodes that they do like this that really work, but it's the side. I think that they were relying too much that everybody was kind of like this serialized kind of adventure of the week sometimes, overall story the other times, and I think that's why they lost people like yourself, where it's just like, I'm just not as invested, because the clones are cool, but like, what are they really doing? Oh, here we go. Here's another side mission. This is another thing that it's just. Yeah, it's now the question is, what do kids think about it? How is it landing with kids? I don't know the answer to that question. I don't know also the metrics of success that it takes for a show like that to stay on the air. Like what do the ratings need to be like for a show like that, as opposed to something like an Andor or an Obi-Wan, or you know what I mean? It's like you got to know going into it, there's a significant change in numbers. I mean, even when Chapek was a part of it, and they said that asinine thing about how, that once the kids go to sleep, the parents turn off the cartoons. There's no more, basically insinuating that adults didn't like animation. And if that's what the head of the studio was saying at the time, they probably didn't give it. They probably, when they announced Bad Batch, he's probably like, that's something that was going on during the Iger era. I don't know. It doesn't. As long as it does this, who cares? And I don't know. I didn't think they needed a season 2, to be honest with you, but they did. I don't know what the metrics of success is, and I don't know how it ends yet. So there could be a definitive answer to your question once the season ends. Like, oh, well, there's no way they can do another season. Or they can leave it open. I think that Filoni loves these characters. I think Filoni was attached to them, and this is a project he wanted to get off the ground, and he did. But I'm with a lot of people, would have definitely preferred having a Tales of the Jedi series, or Tales from the Sith series, or anything different than Bad Batch for 16 episodes each season. It's like, I don't know. I watch it, and like I said, I thought this was a good episode, and I thought it was a good little history lesson and showing the idea of like the fight that they had to do to being on Kashyyyk and all that. I thought I liked it. I mean, this episode was really good. There's some really good episodes this season. I just think the problem is it gets lost with the side mission stories that happen quite often on the show. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know if it'll get canceled yet because I don't know how well it's doing. Doesn't matter if, it depends on the people you're talking to. Or you said that, it does. No one I know is watching it. Are they animation fans or just Star Wars fans? Because just Star Wars fans probably not watching. I don't know. Michael Flashpuller again. How do we know that this Lindelof movie is happening? How can it be different than the other failed movies? I mean, I think that I kind of covered that inside of it. Is like, I think we're going to find out at Celebration that it's happening, and how it can be different is you just got to have that plan. That's it. Ed Harrell. Hey, Kristian, good morning. They just announced Star Wars Visions Season 2 is back, May 4th. What are you hoping to see? If anything, all new stories, continuation of some stories from Season 1, and bonus, when is that interview with Katie dropping? Okay, so I kind of addressed that in the beginning, Ed, as far as the Katie interview. That's going to drop on February 27th, which is that Monday leading into The Mandalorian. So that will be when that drops. As far as Visions go, I think it's a combination of both. I think you're going to get some new stories that they tell. And then I think there's going to be some continuation of some of the ones that we liked and some characters that we liked. I think that this is they have a leg up on other stories because they're not beholden to anything, and it's essentially Legends on TV, right? The Legends series of books, they can do whatever the hell they want. It doesn't play in the canon. They can do some fun adventures. They can do whatever they want, and if they wanted to, they can even make it like a what if series, which it could kind of be in a certain aspect. I don't know if they're allowed to play with certain characters or not, but either way, the way that they're playing into it, Visions was, I mean, because I wasn't necessarily excited about it. Visions turned out to be something that was really special. I liked it a lot, and I'm looking forward to Season 2 because of how much I like Season 1. So I think it's, and again, going back into the fact that even though it's not necessarily a canon-based show, it is still another Star Wars thing you got this year. Bad Batch, Mandalorian, the Visions, Ahsoka, Skeleton Crew. I mean, that's 5 Star Wars things this year alone. So it's pretty great. All right, keeping it going, man. Keeping it going. We got, this one's from Pierre. What up, Pierre? At Disney Investor Day 2020, a Star Wars TV series crossover was announced. I did see Miguel Fernandez actually sent me this because I had said a handful of times I wondered if they were going to do something like this, and apparently I glossed over it when Kennedy mentioned it at that event. It's probably the same link that you just put here, and she does say it. She said it'll lead us a crossover. I think that she obviously just reading from. I don't even think she knew what it was. She's just kind of reading from a teleprompter. But with Rangers of the New Republic canceled, which series do you think this will include? I think that's already been answered. I think it's Skeleton Crew. I think Skeleton Crew was created because they had that series, the Gina Carano stuff happened. They were going to lead with her, and it was going to all kind of play in. And then they said, okay, well, what do we do here? And then Watts and Favreau are pretty tight. They probably got to talk, and he's like, look, I need something to fill this void. I need something to kind of, that this is where our story was going with the new Rangers thing, and it needed to play into this big event that we're going to do with Thrawn and all this stuff. And he's like, well, I got an idea. I could do this. What if we did this? And you just see it in the room. Probably that's where it develops, because Skeleton Crew kind of came out of nowhere, and then no one even talked about New Rangers anymore. So I think that that's exactly what happened. I think that I think that's exactly what it's going to be. I think it's the Skeleton Crew, and as far as this crossover thing, I still think the crossover event's still happening, and I think that it all plays together into the unknown regions. And I hope, it would be amazing if the crossover event, if they actually adapted the the Zahn trilogy, but did it in a way that they could adapt it. Obviously, it's Legends, but they can take stuff. There's some stuff they're going to have to change for canon. To make it make sense with current canon. But I think adapt that and say that it's going to be the whatever, the heir to the Empire and all that. Him coming back in this big, huge event could be something. Could be something interesting. But we'll see how it plays. Okay, let's go to the next question. And thank you again, Pierre, for that one. And now we go to Charlie Upton. Bad Batch Episode 6 is my favorite so far. I feel like this episode could be a great movie. It gave me Avatar vibes. Definitely. What are your thoughts with Star Wars shows not making Nielsen's 2020 streaming chart? Is Star Wars still a big thing in pop culture, or do we need better shows and stories? I think there's a lot of different answers in there. First of all, I agree with you. I think this is one of the better episodes of Bad Batch, and no, not just because I had to deal with the Jedi inside of the Wookiee. It was a nice callback to bring him back from the Clone Wars and show that he survived it and kind of the trauma that he's kind of gone through. And it did have Avatar vibes for sure, like this kind of rebellion against it, and watching the Bad Batch help. And I thought that was great. It was a good way to use them. And it's, I thought it was pretty emotional as well. So that part of it, I agree. As far as it not being included, I mean, there's a lot of different shows out there right now. I'm surprised that as far as the Nielsen stuff that Obi-Wan, because like I said, it did fairly well from what I heard, but as compared to other shows, whether it's House of the Dragon or these other things, I don't know. As far as your last question goes inside of that of, do we need better shows and stories? Of course we do. Of course. Because I think that's the trick is this. The trick is, I think that rightfully so, Dave Filoni really plays into the mantra of George Lucas of that Star Wars is primarily has always been for kids, right? And I get that. I understand that. And I think that there should be times that is 100% true. But I also think with evolution of a brand and an IP, you can do things like Andor. And you can do that's not a show. That's not a show for 8 and 9-year-olds. They're going to get bored with that. They're going to get bored with it because they have to pay attention to everything being said. And it's not just pew pew and all that stuff too. And there's some, I shouldn't say that all 8 and 9-year-olds wouldn't like it, but it's just not aimed for them. Where I think that the problem with something like there are scenes inside of Obi-Wan that were really fantastic. And even though I don't really understand why Obi-Wan wasn't burned, that whole scene with him and Vader and them fighting and the kind of devastation and all that, I think that like that's a little bit more and Vader cracking necks and killing people, like that was pretty brutal, right? And there was stuff that show did well, but then I know I bring it up all the time, but then you get that scene with Leia running around in the woods and Flea and his bumbling buffoons are tripping over leaves and falling over rocks, and it looked like a set. I mean, like it's like stuff like that. It's like you've got to pay attention to that stuff if you want to be taken serious inside of it to go, well, wow. I mean, Andor was nominated for awards, and I know Mandalorian was too. So you've got both Mandalorian and both the two best shows, arguably, in what they're doing in Star Wars right now. So putting all that effort, work, good writing, good directing, that's one of the things that Mandalorian really, really has is the amount of the direction. And you get that was put into it. And when Katie's on, we talk about Bryce Dallas Howard a lot and her approach and how she does it. So I think it's kind of a combination of all of it. All right, before we move on, I wanted to let you guys know also, as we've been talking about this entire week, very excited to be working with Betterhelp. This episode is sponsored by Betterhelp. Give online therapy a try at betterhelp.com/bigthing and get on your way to being your best self. I'm so excited that BetterHelp is back. You guys know when we were with SEN, we were doing SEN Live, BetterHelp was with us, and we really, really were such major fans and so pumped to know that they are coming back to be with Big Thing. If you're at your best, you can do great things. And sometimes life gets you bogged down and you can feel overwhelmed, like you're not showing up in the way that you want to. I can tell you right now that this was the case for me. I've talked about this not too long, about a year ago. I was in that headspace. I was there, and I remember I'll be honest, BetterHelp, and it helped me tremendously. I've talked about it. And, it's just you get into that rut. Working with a therapist, it can help you get closer to the best version of you. Because when you feel empowered, you're more prepared to take on everything that life throws at you. It helped me. Be able to talk to somebody, and I've mentioned this in the past. I've been in places when I've decided not to talk to people, and I got myself in trouble from doing it. I didn't talk to anybody. I let things bottle up inside. Don't do it. Because I'm telling you, when you talk to somebody, it helps. It really, really does help. If you're thinking of giving therapy a try, BetterHelp is a great option. It's convenient, it's flexible, it's affordable, and it's entirely online. You fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist and then switch therapists anytime, no additional charge. If you want to live a more empowered life, therapy can get you there. Visit betterhelp.com/bigthing today and you get 10% off your first month. BetterHelp, HELP.com/bigthing. All right, so once again, thank you to our sponsors, BetterHelp. Really excited to be working with them again, and it's a very important thing to keep care of yourself. And if you need somebody to talk to, BetterHelp. There you go. All right, let's move on. Take a couple more, and then we'll move on to the end of the show. That's what we'll move on to, the end of the show. Jesus CM, or Jesus CM. Sorry. With DC planning its reboot, are there any current actors in the DCEU that you think would be perfect for a role in a Star Wars Sith or Jedi? I'd like to see both Gal Gadot and Henry Cavill be in Star Wars. I think they both could do some great stuff in Star Wars. Love to see either one as Jedi/Sith or something else. Be great. I'd love to have them in there. I think that somebody needs to snatch Cavill up for sure. And that's a big free agent out there in sports terms. It's like the person who, whether it's, whoever it might be, whether it's Bond, if it's Star Wars, if it's Marvel, someone's going to snatch him up. I think they got to do it quick because it'll be a big splash if they do it. I don't know. We'll see. Okay. Keeping it going. Next question here from A+, more phenomenal. Have you kept up with the High Republic novels, and what have you thought about them so far? I have not caught up with them, and I think that this is the same thing that I've had this conversation many times over, and I think we talked about it recently when we started talking about like how important it is for canon. Not saying that they should do it, but how important it is for canon with the K2SO Andor meeting. I don't feel, and some people will go, he shouldn't have to. I don't feel that Tony Gilroy necessarily has to follow the comics of Andor and Cassian, but if he doesn't, canon shouldn't be taken seriously anymore in Star Wars because it's just like you're reading it. It's canon until it isn't. And so that's not what really was pitched. And if you look at and I think this is the perfect example now because the big reference is like James Gunn. James Gunn's talking about how this narrative and everything that he's talking about with video games, animation, and the movies are all going to, and video games, animation, the movies, the TV shows are all going to play into one narrative that they're telling inside the DCU. Now, if there was something that they said about Star Wars, like, look, there are certain side stories that are going to be kind of outside of the current narrative, but this set, the High Republic, this is all going to play into this full narrative. This High Republic thing, this show, this. So all of it makes sense to play into it. Then you're like, okay, maybe I want to get invested in this because I want to know what's going on. Besides Darth Bane and like the Plagueis thing and the Thrawn trilogy, like those are just side stories that I really like. I was really reading all the current stuff because I wanted to learn more about like the actual history, like the same way that when you read about like in Game of Thrones, you're reading about the history of what happened in Westeros, right? I wanted to actually read about the history of how, but now it's like, well, that's not really the history. It could be, it might be, but if the director doesn't like it, not the history. That character might show up, but it's not going to be the same way. We told you it was going to be the same way, but it's not. That's, some people read it for some people just read the High Republic and go, look, I just love the stories, and that's fantastic, and that's their goal, and that's what they want. And if that's what you like it for, then you should absolutely invest. And I've heard good things about it, but I'm not investing in it anymore. So no, I haven't checked that. I kind of bailed on canon stuff a little while ago because it's just not what I like to read them for. Okay. So the next question, Nick Bascom. Assuming that Moff Gideon will still be in the New Republic custody, do we think we'll be introduced to a new big bad in Mando Season 3? Yeah, I think there's going to be a lot of stuff going on. I think he comes back. I think he's going to have a big role to play, and he's going to be a pain in the ass again for sure. But I do think there'll be other obstacles that Din's got to deal with. I think Bo-Katan's going to be a pain in the ass for him as well, trying to get that Darksaber, and that has nothing to do with any conversation. She didn't tell me jack on any conversation that we had. She didn't tell me anything. And I was like, hey, I was talking to her, and I was like, and I actually, you see me in the interview as I'm talking to her, I'm like, I want to ask you this, but I also don't want to get you in trouble because we're going to see the show soon. So I feel like she's going to be a pain in the ass for him, but it just depends on what they're going to do with her character overall. But the big bad would probably be Moff Gideon, and then I think we'll get some more. We'll get somebody else introduced. I think we will, and I think that is it going to play into any of this stuff that's happening in this big crossover event with Thrawn? I don't know. It's interesting though. Okay, Richard Gensch. So we know what's coming up on Disney Plus in the next few years. You got Mando season 3 and 4, Acolyte, Skeleton Crew, Ahsoka season 1 and 2. I don't know. Oh, sorry. Ahsoka Andor 2. Others like Lando will not happen, I think. Do you think that it'll be for streaming for a few years that they concentrate on so-called 3 films due to financial reasons? There's more to be made from cinema. Personally, I'd love the story to continue somehow with episodes 10, 11, and 12 with a very different story, but still connected, which is what I think all the shows will do, connect everything from the films to then continue. I think that I agree with you that they should. That's ultimately what I was saying beforehand, right? Was that I think that what they should do inside of this new movie, see how the first one plays. Do not announce you're doing 10, 11, and 12 because you're setting yourself up. If you don't have a full plan on it and you don't have the production plan and the treatment and all that, and they're not. Kennedy cannot get away from that thing of the hot director of the week and how movies usually are made and the idea of you just can't do it. She's got a old school mentality for it, and I think that old school mentality is going to work for Indiana Jones. It has not worked for Star Wars films, and I think that it's because I've been in that studio system where like, all right, who's got that? So and so's coming off that hot movie. We've got this thing sitting on the shelf. Bring them in, let them do that. And then we got this other thing sitting on the shelf. Let's do that. But that's not with the way that the narrative of what they're trying to do, if they're trying to connect all these things. Now, it's different if they bring in, Lindelof really has been talking about this for a while. Let's set up this movie. Let's put this movie out. Let's see how it does. And then we read the audience. We read the test audiences. We read people who have seen it. We see what's popping. We see which characters are making an impact. And then we can develop a show, partially on it, or they have a full treatment. I don't know. But it's interesting, man. I think that they're going to concentrate on TV because it's the most solid right now. And as far as, I don't know how it's going to connect to TV and all that because they've got to connect TV shows to these movies as well if they're going to do it. So it's a very interesting time for Star Wars for sure. This is a make or break for them in movies. Russell Witherman. Given Marvel's one-off specials like Guardian of the Galaxy and Werewolf by Night, would you like to see Star Wars go this route? Maybe make a bunch of one-off stories with various characters set in the Star Wars universe? Not yet, because it's the same thing. Because I think the difference with Marvel is Marvel has the full kind of narrative to when they put it out. You're like, okay, this is a narrative of characters, Guardians, for example, right, that have been set in 2 movies, successful movies, and they're out there and they're characters that we know, and those characters also showed up in Endgame and Infinity War, so you're familiar with them, and like, okay, that's a fun one-off special. I'll follow them, right? The Werewolf by Night, again, it's this thing that they did, like a one-off special, because they've done so many different things, and now they're adding like the supernatural element after years and years and years of other established stuff. Star Wars and movies and the overall through line and timeline is in disarray. To start doing like these one-off things right now, they gotta focus on their plan in general. At least that's my thought on it. Okay, next one. David Lozano. Do you think there is more delay? We talked about this kind of on Jedi Survivor that we're being told. I think a little bit, nothing too nefarious, but I think something just along the lines of because of where they want to put it out. Maybe the initial thing wasn't where they wanted to put it because of Celebration, this other stuff, and they thought maybe we'll push it back a couple of weeks. Plus, we can kind of iron out some of the kinks. Callum, do you think we could get a Rey TV series too, given that to give that character more development if she's supposed to be in the Damon Lindelof movie? Perhaps. It depends. There's no. People are just speculating that she's going to be in that Lindelof movie. I don't know. She might not be. She might be in something else, or she might be just in a TV series. I think that, I mean, we've been burnt by this statement a lot, but that you might, or you should anyway, get more information at Star Wars Celebration. Like, that should be the place where they really, really like steal the headlines for the weekend. I think sometimes they do these presentations and they have an opportunity to steal the weekend, and they don't do it. Showing Willow at a Star Wars Celebration thing, I get showing at D23. That makes a lot of sense, because it's Lucasfilm, but it's not called Lucasfilm Celebration. It's called Star Wars Celebration. I never understood that pushback. I was like, why are they showing Willow at the Star Wars announcement panel? Well, they want to promote it. It's Lucasfilm, but it's not called Lucasfilm Celebration. It's called Star Wars Celebration. And you're like I still said, there's no word of the Acolyte. Now the Acolyte's going to be heavily focused on, and I know we're getting closer to it, but there wasn't even a mention of that show. Now there's going to be. Now there's like set photos and all that kind of stuff, but it was just kind of baffling to me. It's not run wonderfully over there. I'll tell you that. When they could make, and it's not just Star Wars Celebration, Comic-Cons and all these things too. I still think maybe it's just kind of like the showman in me. I don't know, but it's like I still think a lot of these things are still so like, I don't know, just vanilla sometimes. Here's a panel, here's a host, and they come out and there's the celebrity. What was it like working with this person? Oh, what's it with this person? Hi. Oh, that's a funny joke. Okay. And now we've reached the last 7 minutes. Here's a trailer for the thing we've been talking about for 50 minutes. Give me a show. Give me a show. You know, it's that's the stuff that I'd like to see, and that's not just Star Wars. That's all of it. It's all of it. Just there's money that goes into it. That's the problem. Let's see. I'm gonna do two more. Austin H. Which Star Wars TV approach do you see being more popular in the near future? Mando or Andor? You gotta more popular? Mando. I mean, because it's space opera. It's more of what everybody wants, and you're gonna get those people who are just like, this isn't Star Wars because there's no pew pew, and it's like, no, that's not it. And I'm not telling you that if you didn't like Andor, that's the only thing. But I think, but there was a lot of that. Like, what are you talking about? This isn't Star Wars. Like, it's totally Star Wars. It might not be the Star Wars that you enjoy, and I think that more people like the Mando approach of it, which again, being upfront, Mando is my favorite out of all of it. And anything that's been done since 2000 and Mando is my right after Jedi. I mean, I still say Mando is probably, depending season 2, depending on watching it again, it's in that area for me. The Mando series, and then Rogue One, and then some of the prequel stuff, and then the new trilogy kind of falls towards the end. But yeah, so. I think that you can. It depends. I think they should play. I think they should blend with it. And I think that locations, by the way, should be a thing, that a blend with the volume, and not go full volume like some of these other shows. Like I think Obi-Wan and Boba Fett went full volume for the most part. Last question here, Bruce Crawford. Do you think that Din and Bo-Katan will fight for the Darksaber this third season? So we did that reaction with Katie where she saw it, and the first thing she said is, she goes, "Get your hands off my Darksaber." And I was like, does that mean that they're really going after it? I think so. I didn't press her on it, but that was their first reaction. And I said, maybe. I think it will be. And I think that if I was to guess, I'd probably say, they're probably gonna battle for most of the season. And we'll see if she's either gonna go dark side or light side. We'll see. Fingers crossed on either. It's Katie. So I always root for her. All right, everybody. Thank you guys so much for joining us on the show here today. If you haven't already done it, do me a favor and subscribe to the channel. We're getting close. We're getting close. Hit that button. Apple Podcasts. We are on Spotify. Don't forget about Patreon. Everything and more. The merch. All of it. The links are in the description, but the live event, me, Campia, Greg Alba, Flappers, and then obviously myself and Brett Sheridan are performing on February 13th, also at Flappers. Links in the description. So thanks for joining me here today. Make sure you comment below. We'll be back for Big Thing Capes and Cows tomorrow. Thanks again. We'll see you next week. I appreciate you. And yeah, that's all I got for you. I don't know. Nothing else to say. Yeah, I'm good. Are you good? Cool. All right. See you later. Where the hell is the button? Oh, there it is.
I can